Have you ever wanted to go to countries like I do on my channel? See exotic places and meet new people?
All the video you're seeing right now, Adam took while on a tour he organized with a local guide. In each trip, he not only got to see all of the major sites on the tourist trail, but he got to take detours off the trail with his guide and got to see amazing things that most travelers miss.
Stay tuned for our video to find out how.
So Adam, you have a practice of hiring or hooking up with a local when you travel abroad. So let's talk a little bit about that. I know you've had a lot of wonderful local guides. Can you name just a few of these wonderful local guides you've had and the countries that they've shown you?
Yes, just recently I hired a local Jonathan Langier in Kenya. He was a Maasai warrior and a local that I met while camping. There's Lalo Desi in Ethiopia, who lives in the southern Omo Valley, and he's also native. He showed me the South Omo Valley and many tribes in Ethiopia. When we went to Colombia, we met Sarita.
That's right.
Who was like the Jane Goodall of Colombia.
That's
with,
right, in the
monkeys,
Amazon. Yeah.
Conservation. I took a trip once to Bolivia and I hired Jorge, just as a local guide, walking tour. And I believe that might have been like free, but just for like tips. 30 years ago, one of the first I met was a Pampri Chetari in Nepal that showed me some remote areas in the Lumbini zone. That was pretty amazing. When I went to Papua New Guinea, Pastor James Elijah took care of me, showed me around the country, and I helped fund his Bible crusade as we traveled around the country. In Tahiti, Atahiva Fa'ua Germain was a local who showed us around. Yeah. And we didn't even have to pay her anything. She just wanted to show us around the country.
Nice.
And then we ended up living at her house and everything. Just recently, Jose Moreno in Argentina was a big help in helping me to book accommodation and tours in Argentina. And I also stayed at his house for several days. 30 years ago, I had a guide, Shailok Donma, in Tibet. But that was through the Chinese government set me up with her. I mean, she was still a local Tibetan, so I don't know if that really counts or not. I met a local in Pakistan 30 years ago named Michael in Lahore, and he and I traveled across Pakistan together, and we saw many wonderful things. 2 years ago, I went to Greenland, and I hired a local guide, Jan, who took me hunting and took me out on his boat, and we saw ice sheets and glaciers.
Thank you. So let's talk about some of the benefits that you've found from working just you and a local instead of going through a tour company. A word you've used a lot when you describe to me how you do your trips is flexibility. So do you mean you have more flexibility in the sites you visit and the schedule you're going to have, or that you can cancel things at the last minute and change your plans, or is it both and more? What do you mean by flexibility?
You can be flexible with the schedule, or if the weather changes, then you can change what you're doing. Or I don't know if we have to talk about like the group tours in a way. So the flexibility is if it's flexible, and for instance, like another local hires you to come have dinner at their house or whatever, then you have the flexibility to go and do that. And that can be one of the most wonderful things of your whole trip is, you know, being invited to a local's home and see what life is like and try their food and see what their family life is like. If you're on a group tour, it's set every day where you're going to go. And even if you hop off the bus for a minute and someone says like, hey, come to my house, you're not going to be able to because your schedule is completely set for every single day of your group tour.
And if there's an event you hear about, you can go and see that. You don't have like a group itinerary that you have to stick with. You can go and see something incredible. Didn't you hear about some concert that you were able to go see when you were in Argentina recently?
Yes. So my friend Jose Moreno sent me a text when I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and he's like, you got to get to this concert by the law school. Like every famous Argentinian musician is playing there. So I raced over there and it was just like tens of thousands of people. And it was all these amazing Argentinian artists from over the years were performing there for whatever reason. It was just really incredible. So yeah, I just dropped everything and I had the flexibility to run over there on the other side of the town and push through the crowds and see all these amazing Argentinian artists that I wasn't familiar with. So and I saw them all at once, all like within one evening. I can't even remember all the names of them, but
Wow.
yeah.
You also mentioned the weather. That became a real issue when we were in Iceland not too long ago, because we went during the shoulder season and it was kind of rainy.
Yes.
And I'm trying to remember right now, we were basically watching the weather every day. And we had rented, in that case, we didn't have a guide, but we rented our own van. And we just spent the whole time avoiding the weather storms.
Right. We went off season to save money, and also there was less tourists there. But then we ran the risk of there being really bad weather. Right. And it wasn't really bad, but I just used the vehicle, even had a hot spot with the vehicle, the camper that we were sleeping out of. And we drove around avoiding the weather. Another one that I remember was when we were in Colombia, because it was an amazing trip, but I think my intention going in was that I was going to hike in the mountains of Colombia all over the place.
That's right.
And there was a lot of heavy rain in Colombia, so that didn't happen. And instead we went into the Amazon jungle. We did all these other things. So we had the flexibility to do that. I mean, if we prepaid for a tour to go hiking in the mountains, the whole thing would have been canceled because it was just a torrential downpour and there was no hiking in the mountains at all. So yeah, at the last minute, we made changes. And we were able to do those changes because we didn't have everything set in stone. Remember being at the coffee plantation with Pilo?
Pilo and the cheese puffs that he was serving us with, I think, lemonade by the swimming pool. Oh,
We stayed at this coffee plantation.
so nice.
The staff there at the hotel, and he wasn't like a local guide so much. Yeah, he took care of us. So that was someone we met off the cuff. Yeah.
And there were no one else was staying at the plantation, so we had Pilo all to ourselves, just following us around, serving us snacks, and just being really nice. It was so lovely. So something we've talked about a lot is when you're on a tour, one of the big things that you have to deal with is other people on the tour. Now, not that everyone else who goes on tours is problematic, but you have to deal with other people, and sometimes people who are less considerate and don't, wake up on time and don't have their paperwork together. So you avoid all those issues completely then when you have your own guide, right?
Yeah, many times when I'm hiring a local, then I'm the only customer, so we do everything the way I want to do it. If we have to get up early to be somewhere, then there's no problem. I'm able to get early and the guide's there, and then we're not held up by waiting for other people to wake up or to get there.
Now you have done, because sometimes you have to do a package tour if you want to go to a certain location. You can't arrange it on your own. And you have been on some tours. You told me about one where you were the first person picked up and the last person dropped off, and you had to wait for other people to wake up in the morning. Do you remember that? I think it was in Bolivia.
Right, so that was Bolivia. Yeah, that's an example. All the things that I don't like about group tours kind of happened on that. I took this group tour in Bolivia that started in La Paz, and you have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning to be out there standing on the corner at 4:30 for the bus to pick you up. So the tour bus, comes around and picks everyone up at the various hotels. They tend to cater to the most expensive hotel, but then even then we've been at the expensive hotel and we're never the priority. I don't know why. It's I always lose out on this. So I booked a tour in La Paz, Bolivia, to go to Lake Titicaca. And no, I probably could have done it on my own, but then it just takes time. If you have a lot of time, I could have spent, many, many days going there, but then the tour in particular was going to take me there and bring me back. Typical problems I have when I take a group tour sometimes. I mean, group tours aren't always bad, but there's examples of things that went wrong on this Bolivian tour. It's freezing outside, so you're standing on a big city, like on a street corner in a third world city, and then the bus came very, very late. It's 45 minutes late. And I'm the first one in the group that's picked up. They pick me up and they proceed to drive around to the various hotels to pick up the other people on the tour. And they're not even, I don't know, I don't speak Spanish. I didn't really know what was going on at first, and the bus is kind of running. It's just a big old metal bus that's freezing. At some point they just turn the ignition off because they know the people aren't coming anytime soon. They haven't even woken up. So they probably slowly wake up and they want the breakfast that's with their hotel. So I'm waiting out there. They just take their sweet time having their breakfast, and they come out, and you can't even really complain if you don't speak the language. So it was only supposed to take like 3-4 hours to get from La Paz to Lake Titicaca. But with all this driving around and picking people up, it took 12 hours of going around. And then they arrive there and they drop everyone off at the hotel that they're going to stay at in Lake Titicaca. But that's not my hotel. And I don't know where my hotel is. I have a voucher with the name of it. So I'm wandering all around looking for this hotel in a foreign place and then got lost. And so finally found it. But then the receptionist wasn't there because I guess they're not there 24/7. I had to wait for that receptionist. And just like everything, that could go wrong, went wrong. And then the following day, I was supposed to get on the boats on Lake Titicaca and see some stuff. And my guide showed up incredibly drunk, like he was going to fall over, so it was just like dangerous with this.
Not a great local guide. But he did do something cool later in the tour.
Oh, yeah. Well, before that, we got to one island and he was like, oh, sometimes the tourists want to climb to the top of the mountain later. They're like, you wouldn't want to do that, would you? And I'm like, why? Yes, I do want to climb to the, so I forced, and it's really hard when you're really drunk to go on a long, long trek. So I forced him to go up there and he made it. And he was just like, oh, yeah. I guess he said like all the other tourists were really out of shape or whatever. I guess he wasn't expecting that. But so that was kind of my revenge for him being such a lousy tour guide. When we got back on the boats heading back, that boat had a gas leak. There were some young guys were smoking on it, and he just told them no, you the whole thing's gonna blow up. You have to stop smoking. And they wouldn't. And then he became like the angry drunk and was gonna throw them off the side. So I was very impressed because he saved us all from blowing up. So he redeemed himself and he got a good tip. But those were like examples of things with the group tours. And then you're locked in too. It was like 3 days of things going bad, and I was like, I just want out of this. I just would be better off just wandering around by myself, getting lost. The group tour is supposed to why am I lost looking for my hotel? I'm supposed to be on a tour. They're supposed to take me there, and none of it was happening. Right. So when you hire your own personal guide as like a local for cheap, then they cater to you, and they're kind of always looking out for you and watching over you.
One other time we were on a tour in Jordan. Do you remember going back, which was a great tour? We don't ordinarily take these package tours, but it was one way we could cross from Israel into Jordan and come back. But do you remember on the way back, the people didn't have their travel paperwork in order? Right, yeah, so you're crossing back over the border from Jordan back into Israel. You don't know who the other people on the tour are. If they're not prepared, they don't have their stuff together, then everybody's waiting for them. So we're just waiting and waiting and waiting. Hours.
And I think other people on the tour, more than us, were complaining hey, you got to get us back. And if that guy doesn't have his documents in order, that tourist, then you got to organize another, we're not just all going to sit here all night.
Right.
Waiting for the officials to interrogate him or whatever.
Right. Now, I know you're not a purist who is saying you would never do any kind of package tour, because we've done them before. There are times there's no right or wrong way to travel, right?
That's correct. Yeah, there's no wrong way to travel.
So there are ways to do this and to check things out and see how you like the tour, the tour guide. And if you don't like it, don't hire them. And if you do like it, then go ahead and hire them. You're not stuck with just doing package tours. That's not the only option.
Thanks for watching.